gets into difficulty, first thing you need to do is start the seat going. What you'll do by that, 2 hands on the handle, pull up sharply. As the seat's moving up from the aircraft, a few more things happen. All his emergency services are disconnected, the canopy will be detonated. It then fires the rocket pack, which produces 4,500 pounds of thrust to get the seat clear of the aircraft. Then 1.5 seconds later, the Biostatic Time Release Unit will fire, which will fire the parachute and bring the pilot down to earth. When the pilot ejects, it exerts a huge pressure on the pilot. As he ejects, he can experience roughly about 30 G, so coupled with the pilot's weight, could equate to something like 1.5 tons. When the pilot ejects, it actually compresses the spine, and he's only allowed to eject from the aircraft 3 times. Once he's ejected 3 times, if he's unfortunate enough to have to do that, then he has to discontinue flying.
In Part 2, ATA-1 Squadron and its Sea Harriers embark on the Portsmouth-based aircraft carrier HMS Invincible for an exercise off the south coast. Victory lies the aircraft carrier HMS Invincible. 20,000 tons, nearly 700 feet in length, and with more than 1,000 people on board, she is just about to leave for a 2-week training exercise. On board is a mixed force of Harriers from the RAF and the Fleet Air Arm. The fighter pilots eagerly wait for the flying to begin.
It is exciting. There's no getting away from it, and I think sometimes when you've been doing it for a while you can get a bit blasé about what you're doing. We are carrying out a job which is a lot of young men's dreams. When you're a teenager, you look and you say, right, I would like to be a fighter pilot, and you try not to forget that. We're doing the most fantastic job. It's hard work, it's very hard work getting there in the first place, but it's also hard work once we get here.
Once the aircraft are on deck, the crews attend the first briefing.
The altitude is really the indicator of warm front that's passed into the analysis.
We are in the middle of a 2-week intensive flying training period, really for the benefit of 4 Squadron from RAF Cottesmore. Now this squadron, although RAF, it does have some naval personnel, naval pilots and maintainers on board, and they of course have been to sea before. But for most of the squadron, most of the pilots and their maintainers, this is the first time they've ever been to sea. So the aim of this 2 weeks is really to introduce them to living at sea and actually to operating their aircraft from a ship.
4 years ago we got together to create Joint Force 2000 to work to this combined force capable of operating from land and sea, bringing together to 4 squadrons, joint operation, 50% Royal Navy, 50% Royal Air Force.
To make this all work, we still need Navy pilots because they've got the real experience in operating from ships, and the Navy maintainers because it's exactly the same for them. But we're all going to work together under an organisation called Joint Force Harrier. So in the near future, we're going to have just ground attack Harriers, and they're going to have a mixture of Navy pilots, Navy maintainers and RAF pilots and maintainers all working together.
An hour before takeoff, the pilots change into their flying kit, and the most crucial piece is the G-suit.
You see there, all this area here has inflated, and what that does is it squeezes down on your legs and your stomach area to stop all the blood that would rush from your head down into the bottom of your legs from doing so, which can cause G-induced loss of consciousness, something called G-lock, which obviously in a single-seat aircraft or any fast jet aircraft is a bad thing. It starts off initially, you start getting tunnel vision, and you can actually see this. Most pilots that you'll talk to will have had it at some stage. Your vision will start closing in until you look like you're looking through toilet rolls. After that, you'll go grey. You'll think you can see, but actually all you can see is a grey area in front of your eyes because the blood just isn't getting to them. And after that, you'll black out, and that'll be it.
Preparations turn every flight into a lengthy affair.
Typically a flying cycle would potentially take up to about 5 hours for as short as an hour and a quarter flight. You've got a briefing, ship's briefing 2 hours beforehand, a mission briefing an hour and a half beforehand. You walk to the jet 40 minutes before you take off to make sure all the checks are ready to go. You'll fly for about an hour and a quarter typically. and that's without air-to-air refuelling. So add all those together, you can be busy purely on the flying side of things between 4 and 5 hours of a working day.
By the time the pilots reach the flight deck, the aircraft have been positioned and prepared for flight by the squadron's ground crew.
For each aircraft we have on the flight deck, we give it to 2 air engineer mechanics assigned to it, and their primary role is to assist the pilot in strapping in, and as he goes through the start sequence, all the chocks and lashings are removed and he can taxi to the runway for launch. We also have on the flight deck supervisors of each trade, so that if a pilot has a problem after start or during start, we have the right man in the right place to hopefully solve the problem there and then and get the aircraft off the deck.
Several decks down, the ops room is full and the radar screen's active. It's from here the aircraft will be guided to their targets by the fighter controller.
This morning we're launching 10 aircraft, all Harriers fixed-wing. The first 6 of which will be Harrier GR7s. They are the RAF Harriers. They're primarily used in the ground attack role. They'll be launching from here but working over land, practicing their bombing targets, simulated targets and working on military ranges. 801C Harriers will be getting airborne and doing an air defence mission with 2 of the fighters playing Sea Harriers and 2 playing simulated Eastern Bloc threat.
We need most of the runway for the run-up. And of course, you can imagine if you're using most of the runway for the run-up, you have very little space to line the other aircraft that are going to take off afterwards, to line them up. So then that means my deck crews have to be very swift on the marshalling and the pilots have to be absolutely ready, engines running, checks completed, and ready to go.
And the man responsible for marshalling the Harriers around the deck and getting them safely airborne is the flight deck officer.
My job basically is to assess the condition of the deck, check behind the aircraft, make sure everybody's clear. He gets a green flag and away he goes. The jet wash is particularly bad when it's wet or when it's windy. I mean, sometimes we can have 50 knots of wind over the deck, and then you've got the wash of the aircraft itself. I mean, I weigh 16 stone, and it'll certainly take me off my feet if I'm not very careful.
You slam the throttle, you go 0 to 100 miles an hour in about 2.5 seconds. You'll take off in this beast that is a complete pilot's aeroplane. It's one of the few pilot's aeroplanes left in the front line services anymore because of its age, because it's a dated design. You can go off high level, you can drop into low level, go down 250 feet at 500 miles an hour. At the same time, you'll be monitoring the radar system to make sure you're not being intercepted by anyone. You'll be looking out, making sure there are no other aircraft, no birds you're going to hit. Everything's coming in, everything's clicking, everything's working, and it's a fantastic feeling of exhilaration.
After takeoff, control of the aircraft switches to the ops room, where pilots get information about their mission from the fighter controller.
Vixen 1, mission identified. So here we've got 2 contacts, air contacts on our radar, unidentified at present. I'm using Vixens, who are 2 Sea Harriers, to commit to them and to identify them. I can see that they're heading towards Vixens, and I'll tell them such now. Vixens, Freddy, single group, bullseye 345, 30, tracks 03, hot. Vixens, mission engage. Freddy, same, strength 2, beam east. Right hand fight, bullseye 345 at 35 miles. I've given them an engage order and they're letting me know that now by saying Fox 3. That means they're firing a missile at the target.
Splash 1.
And Fox 3 splash. Freddy, terminate. And at the end of their training, they've said that they've splashed the target, so they've shot them down for exercise purposes, and now they're terminating, they're finishing their fight, and they'll now reset and start their training again.